right, so 58 continued. This one is my favorite. This is hilarious. So the examples I use are really old. So this little situation here describes a player for the Houston Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon. He was the greatest basketball player of the 90s, so long as Michael Jordan was playing baseball. So he is the NBA's MVP in 1994. That, coincidentally, is the year Michael Jordan went to go play baseball. Go look it up. It's in The Last Dance. I highly recommend it. But anyway, so Hakeem Olajuwon, let's say, is earning $6 million a year. So because there's a fixed amount of Hakeem Olajuwons, right, his supply curve looks like this. Right here is the supply of Hakeem Olajuwon. It stands at 1. The demand for Hakeem Olajuwon as an NBA player is somewhere around $6 million. So let's assume for a second, economically, his opportunity cost is what we're looking at here. What else could this be used for, and what would it take for somebody to hire him away? So let's say his next best option is he could be a high school PE teacher, right? And he would earn, and he'd be an awesome basketball coach, and he'd earn $40,000 a year. So what's going on here is how much economic rent is involved. The answer to that question is really like it's this $600 million, but subtract out that $40,000. He could be making $40,000 somewhere else. So he's got to satisfy that first. So the economic rent is everything that's left over. So his economic rent is $5,960,000 a year. That's a lot of economic rent. So let's say instead of basketball, Hakeem, so again, this is 1994, so people are bagging on soccer. Let's change it to cricket. So let's say the greatest cricket player in the world, India's greatest cricket player, some superstar from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or someplace, comes to the United States and he wants to make some money playing cricket. Would he receive more or less economic rent than Hakeem Olajuwon, than he does for playing basketball here in the United States? So is there as much demand? Even though there's the supply of that world's greatest cricket player, it's still one, and he's still in high demand. He's not in high demand in the United States. So he's going to receive a lot less economic rent. And because, again, the demand for it, just not as high. Sorry, cricket players. All right, so now let's make another assumption. So let's say Hakeem Olajuwon or whoever, they have to play for the same team for their entire career. It becomes a rule. You get drafted right out of college or wherever. What's going to happen to Hakeem Olajuwon's salary? Is he going to make as much if he has to play for the same team year after year after year after year? Okay, so Hakeem Olajuwon's salary is likely not going to increase as much as it would because other teams aren't going to compete for his rent. If we kind of take away the competition and make the Houston Rockets a monopsony, Hakeem Olajuwon is going to make less money. Yes, there still will be economic rent. He's still going to make, more than I do, and more than that cricket player, but it's not going to be as much. So, yes, but less. So the question then is, what happened to all that money? Hakeem Olajuwon's getting paid less. There's still a fair amount. He's going to make more than $40,000. So who gets to keep that money then? That rent, and this is going to be the team owner. So the team owner gets to keep all that leftover money. And whether that's fair or not, you can bring that up with the NBA Players Association, and I'm sure they'll argue that all day with you. They should be getting paid even more money, which we'll discuss that one later. All right, so moving on. So let's say it's not just sports folks, but let's say you're pursuing a government contract. So this is another super dated example. So cable TV, I swear this used to be a thing. Back in the day, the only way you could watch more than the 3 channels that were broadcast over the air, and broadcast over the air is another discussion entirely. But if you wanted to watch more than 3 channels, you needed to subscribe to a cable TV package, And because cities didn't want cables just running all over the place and clogging up the lines and having 18,000 different wires coming into every apartment building, there's one cable company allowed in the city, and it would be regulated, but that cable company would then have a government monopoly protected, and they could kind of charge a lot more money. They could provide, not as good service. So we've got a city offering a cable TV contract for 20 years. Potential revenues from this exclusive franchise are $900 million. So over 20 years, this company is going to make $900 million in profits. Revenue rather. Its costs are $500 million. So how much economic rent is involved in the contract? So we're just subtracting these two numbers. Its costs are $500. It could make $900, so $400 million. And if they have $400 million coming in estimated profits, how much could they possibly, and they use the word waste here in this kind of judgy, how much could they invest? And by invest, I mean take the city commissioners out to dinner and come see Hakeem Olajuwon play at my box seats in the Staples Center when the Houston Rockets come to town. Actually, Staples Center didn't exist in 1994, but whatever. So the maximum amount is $400 million, right? So to cover their economic costs, they can blow $400 million on trying to win this contract. Which leads us to 3. If they want this $400 million to go to the residents of the city, what steps should they take in awarding the contract? So think this one over and write this one in. You're on your own on this one. What should the city do to make it so this doesn't happen? So this big giant company doesn't spend $400 million just trying to win the contract. Do they need to kind of look at their processes a little better? Ready, set, go.